Explained last night that the theme that we will weave through the Kinos today is some thought, an examination of the Moshav that we are in, a Tzora Hiliyako, in the midst of a war. Jews are being killed. Eretz Israel is in jeopardy. Families are being torn apart. Boys who are being held hostage. The Avelis on Churban Beis HaMikdash is not merely a historical Avelis, on a one-time occurrence, but it includes all of the results of that Churban, which are all of the Tzoros and all of the Golios. It's even more than that. Mentioned last night that Churban Beis HaMikdash, Golus, and Geula is a process. Started with Golus Mitzrayim, but it didn't end with Golus Mitzrayim. It started with Geulas Mitzrayim, but didn't end with Geulas Mitzrayim. Golus Mitzrayim never was finished, and therefore the Geula was never complete. And therefore we have in the Haggadah, B'chol dor v'dor, Chayiv Adam liros es atzmo ki'ilu hu yotza miMitzrayim. Geulas Mitzrayim is a process that manifests itself in every generation. Every generation is another brick, another layer towards that complete Geula. And likewise, in the same Haggadah, we have Shebechol dor v'dor omdim aleinu lechalosenu. Every generation there is a manifestation of Golus and a manifestation of Geula, until finally those two processes will be completed. The Golus will end and the Geula will be complete. And therefore, later on, we'll sing the Kina, B'tzeisi mi Mitzrayim and B'tzeisi mi Yerushalayim, because the two go together constantly. And that's why the same night of the week that we celebrate Pesach always falls out the same night of the week that we sit and say Eicha. Leil Pesach this past year was Wednesday night, and Leil Tisha B'av is Wednesday night. And therefore, in the Kinos, we don't only speak about Churban Beis HaMikdash, we speak about the Tzoros of many, many Doros, the Iker Tzoros of Klal Yisrael since Churban Beis HaMikdash. The Crusades and Gzeras Tach V'Tat. We mention also the Churban of European Jewry, and Kedoshei York, and Sreifas HaTorah in France, Marami Rottenberg wrote, because Tisha B'av is not, again, to recollect one isolated historical occurrence, but to see what emanated from that. What's the process of Golus? And the process of Golus includes every generation's Churban, every generation's Geula. And the Iker is not just to mention it, not just to recollect, but the Iker is his bonus. to think into it, to dissect it, to examine it, to ponder it. The root of the Churban, after everything was all said and done and all the Averis, the root was Yoda Shor Konehu V'Chamor Evus Ba'alav Yisrael Lo Yoda Ami Lo Hisbonon. Had they thought a little bit, then they would have made a bracha on the Torah, and there wouldn't have been Bittul Torah, and they wouldn't have come to Gili Araya, Shvichas Domim, and Avodah Zorah. It all started by not thinking. As the Navi says that even the Torah they did was mitzvahs anoshim milumada, external, peripheral, without thinking. And when you do mitzvahs without thinking, they don't have the effect. And when you learn Torah without thinking, Amor Shabbat doesn't bring you back l'tov. And when you don't think, you don't make a bracha, and the bracha has no effect. And from that comes turning the mitzvahs themselves into Gili Araya, Shvichas Domim, and Avodah Zorah. And that's where Golus came from. And Sinas China, you don't think, you don't recognize the Rabbanu Shalom at all, you don't recognize Hakaras Hatov, you don't recognize who another Jew is. And when you forget all of those things, then that leads to Churban. And that's what it means, we said last night, Bechiyah Shel Mamish, as opposed to Bechiyah Shel Chinam. Bechiyah Shel Chinam is a cry that comes because a person is overwhelmed with emotion, but he doesn't think about it. It doesn't come because he considers that it's a time to cry and there's something to cry about. Just cries because he can't control his emotions. Bechiyah Shel Mamish is where you cry and you know why you're crying. And you cry because you're supposed to cry. You cry because you know there's something to cry about. And you cry because you want to correct the situation. With his boldness, a person can take the most simple, natural phenomena and transform them into something that makes them great. And without his boldness, you can take the most supernatural occurrences and ignore them completely. Rabbi Akiva became Rabbi Akiva because he contemplated erosion. He saw water eating away at a rock, and he made a kal v'chomer that if water which is so soft can erode rocks which are so hard, then Torah which is so hard can make an impression on my heart too. Can't be harder than that rock. And he became Rabbi Akiva. How many people in history have seen erosion, have learned about it in school, and they didn't become Rabbi Akiva? Because they didn't think. They didn't examine. They didn't consider. And great people, people with tremendous potential, who were Nevi'im, who had communications from the Rabbanu Shalom, but when they didn't think about it, nothing ever came from them. Nothing positive, only negative. Bilam Harasha. The Chafetz Chaim says, what was Bilam? What was his problem? Why did he remain Bilam Harasha, even though he had the potential of a Moshe Rabbeinu? Points out that the parsha of Balak in the Torah with all the nevuos of Bilam have no parshios. There's no paragraphs. It's all one run-on thing. He says that the paragraphs in the Torah